is 1:57, and I will call this meeting to order. The chair notes there is a quorum present, and we'll do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, 3.0, additions and revisions to the agenda. Do not have anything, do you guys?
I do not.
Nothing. Okay. 4.0, public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comments? Okay. Correspondence. I've got a couple in here. We'll start with the low-hanging fruit. So the first is a letter from the Arlington Saddle Club, and I'll just read it. The Arlington Saddle Club would like to acquire approximately 0.56 acres of Gilliam County-owned property adjacent to our rodeo grounds in Arlington, either through donation by Gilliam County or purchased by Arlington Saddle Club. And then it gives a property description. The property was appraised at $980 in 2018 by the Gilliam County Assessor's Office. The advantage to the Saddle Club is that it would give us additional parking space since we may lose space, which we used to lease from the Union Pacific Railroad. The advantage to the county is the Saddle Club will start paying taxes on the additional property. Sincerely, Jim Rucker, Vice President, Arlington Saddle Club. So this, just to note, Jim came in and saw me, and so I told him I would put it on as correspondence, but then we'll have him actually on the agenda for our next meeting to discuss further. So this is just a FYI because it came in after the agenda went out. The second one is from Cindy Osterlin in her capacity as the chair of the library board. And so I'll read this one as well. It says, thank you for your continued support of the Gilliam County Public Library. Library is definitely one of the front doors to our community. Many people coming through town for the first time step in to have a look around and are quite impressed. And a significant number of these visitors inquire about information on ancestors from the area. The Gilliam County Library Board would like to improve the accessibility for the library. Both entry doors are large and heavy to open. Neither door has a push-button entry, which would be helpful for our current population. If there are available funds for such a project, it would assist many members of our community and make the library more accessible for all. We have had issues with the locks on the doors and would like to replace them with keyless entry systems. Replacing both doors with keypad entry locks will enable us to change the code instead of handing out keys. Keyless locks will also ensure no one is accidentally locked inside the library, as happened to one of our staff members. Whoops. Sincerely, Cindy Osterlin from the Gilliam County Public Library Board. So this one as well, I think I may put on the agenda just to follow up and see if this is something we want to pursue. But it came in after, so we'll put this on the September agenda. The third one comes from Les Ruark, and it is regarding railroad crossings at Waste Management. So, and it's pretty lengthy. He did ask that we make it part of the record, and so it will definitely, for the record, be part of the court agenda packet and all that kind of stuff, so it's accessible. I will just summarize it because it is 2 pages long. The big sort of takeaway points that he's requesting is that there should be far greater warning, indicating that activation of the railroad crossings and train crossings on the road on both approaches to it. He was talking specifically because he's hauling wheat at the moment and just not being able to stop the big trucks, basically, if they don't have enough heads up that there's a train crossing. He said on the delay front, there needs to be a more formal and somehow certified recognition on the company's part of others' needs when it comes to the free flow of traffic and use of Cedar Springs Road, used by locals, used by other just as important to the area's economic-based industries. A lot of hyphens there. Even used by the company's own employees who deserve to be able to enter and exit the sites in a timely manner without having to build into their off time the amount of extra time it is now often taking to arrive at or leave at sites. He also says there's also an overall need in the matter to review and perhaps even revisit to some extent the planning director / planning commission's work and the Port of Arlington staff and commissioner involvement that went into the configuration and sign off on the newly placed rail spurs from Shutler Flat industrial site to the waste management site, and the added traffic signage that was to have been erected but now hasn't for the MCP's new offloading facility. One question that deserves an immediate answer: why wasn't the actual extended length of the so-called super trains more adequately anticipated and or provided for in terms of the length of road blockages? And he is saying that he thinks it's not completely out of the question for there to be a total redesign of the entire rail line leading to and from the site, including the use of some form of underpass or overpass for either the road traffic or rail traffic. And that, I think that pretty well sums it up, his main points. Okay. Let's move on to 5.0, the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of August 7th regular meeting minutes, consider approval of Oregon Youth Authority Intergovernmental Agreement number 14275 for juvenile crime prevention basic services, consider approval of grant submittal request for Oregon Department of Justice Crime Victims Services Division, and consider approval of restated Frontier Regional 911 IGA. Is there further discussion?
No.
Just wanted to note on the IGA, people who have been watching the court would know that this came before us last time and it's back before us. And the reason is that the Jefferson County Council looked at it and had one small change that she wanted to just clarify the jurisdiction of the executive committee. So that's why that's different. And back to us. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, 6.0, Frontier, or 6.1, Frontier Telenet update. We have not met, so we are not meeting till October, but I'm just keeping this on as the sort of standard update. The one thing I will tell you, and was shocked, the E-rate money came in.
For what year?
No.
For 17-18, I believe, $230-some thousand came in. So we will be in October doing a supplemental budget to account for that. There was Catherine sitting in the back, she was on the committee. We put a placeholder in there as $1, thinking that it was not going to come in, and apparently it came in.
Wow.
So no idea on the other years if we will see any of that, but that was some good news.
That's significant.
But that's the only update I have.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I was reading in the minutes that it said, our minutes,
Mhm.
that it said the board has asked Frontier Telenet's attorney to draft an RFP for a person or firm to manage day-to-day administrative needs. And I was thinking that it had been decided to not go with a person, that we would rather had a firm. So I was curious when I saw that it says we were going out for a person or a firm.
So I think both me and I think it's safe to say Judge DeBolskas, because Sherman County's really been pushing for there to be a firm. I don't know that Judge Morley has a firm opinion on whether it should be a firm or a person.
Mm-hmm.
And during the discussion that took place, there was some pushback from waste management, sorry, you guys are in the front. He's like, from Dave Wireless, about them thinking that an individual was more appropriate for that role. I'm still of the opinion I think a firm is a better fit, so that we're not paying, so that they can bring different people to the different tasks. We're not paying a high-level consultant to send out agendas, but that we have a high-level consultant available to do, say, regulatory filings. So otherwise, I feel like we're overpaying.
And the
a
firm would
consultant.
be on a case-to-case basis as opposed to
working
As
Every
needed.
day.
40 hours a week.
That is one thing that I think all three of us were in agreement, was that it should be based on, it wouldn't be like the previous agreements were where it was a lump sum. It would be on a need basis. So we wouldn't be cutting somebody a check for the same amount every month. It
So
would be based
is
on
this
hours
correct,
used.
is this correct then, that the RFP is going to either be looking for a person or a firm?
I mean, I think it will likely be written, Don Hole, who's our counsel over there, has not drafted it. I think it would likely be written in a way that an individual could apply. But I think it sounds like the board's leaning towards preferring a firm.
Okay.
If that provides some clarity.
Thank you, yes.
Any other questions on that? All right. We'll go on to 6.2, which is discuss future plans for Shutler Station batch plant. So where we last left this was that Thompson Brothers gave up the lease effective July 31st. The direction from the court at the last meeting was that I would go to Hood River Sand and Gravel, who had expressed some interest maybe in leasing it. So I talked to them yesterday morning. The contact there had concerns about paying a monthly rent and was more interested in just talking to us on a per by use kind of basis. So maybe negotiating just an amount per cubic yard that they're, which is sort of how the lease is structured. The way we structure it now is that they pay $750 a month, and then on top of that, they pay for the actual production out of the plant. So what he is asking is if we would consider dropping the per month charge and just signing a lease based on usage, cubic yards.
So if they never had a need to use it, it would just sit there?
It would sit there.
Tied up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I don't know, or anybody else?
I don't
No
know.
one's else
Beat down a door?
No.
really clamoring.
For where it is.
So the options really before the court, I think the direction I need is, would you like me to pursue a different arrangement with them? He said they cannot make, they don't, he doesn't think it's workable for them to do a monthly lease plus, because if it is sitting idle, it's one thing if we've got a big windmill project and they know they've got jobs lined up for it, but where it's just really kind of needing potential capacity down the road. So the question is, do you want me to pursue a lease for them, or do you want to pursue surplusing it?
I suggest surplusing it.
Okay.
Because again, then it's just sitting there doing nothing for us.
Okay.
Like it was previously. That would be my recommendation.
One of the things that came up when I talked to him about it too was the idea of if the court would be open, if we surplused, would we be open to letting it stay there and leasing the property that it sits on for the buyer? So that they don't actually have to move
Yeah.
the lease
That's
or
something to
move the
consider.
batch plant, just to put on the record that that was a concern. He said moving them and taking it down can be kind of cost prohibitive maybe. It's easier to keep them standing if there's a need for them. So that may be another option to look at, is surplusing it, but keeping it on the property and allowing the
Something
buyer
we
to
can look
lease.
into.
Yeah. Leslie, what did you think about, are you there on surplusing, or do you want to think about it more, or?
Well, I know we've discussed it, and you were of that opinion at some point
Mhm.
too, weren't you, that it was time to do that? Yeah, it would be interesting. I like this. I mean, this is another alternative, is to possibly go with leasing the property in addition to that.
Yeah, surplusing plus leasing the property it sits on. Okay.
Yep.
Is that the direction?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Teresa and I will get to work on getting everything in order for that to come back for the court for us to take the official action to surplus it, and figuring out all the logistics of that. Okay, Sound good? All right, moving on. Consider approval of the lease agreement with the City of Condon for the Ward Street shop. So, this is, we had this before the court last meeting. This is for special transportation. Marla and I have been talking to Catherine about their Ward Street shop, which is right behind City Hall and is sitting vacant right now, and having transportation go in and make the necessary upgrades so they can park vehicles in there. And then the city would basically credit the county for that amount of work done, and then deduct the $500 per month lease payment out of that amount. So it would be, what did we figure, 5 years or so,
Yeah,
roughly?
they estimated it would be about $30,000 to $31,000 for the improvements they wanted.
And the city is proposing a cap for that credit. Is that within the lease then? or-
It is.
Okay. I think I just read that part and didn't find it in here.
It was
Yeah,
35,000.
Section
Right, it's, I said
2.
100, I'm sorry.
Yeah, section 2.
Oh, okay.
What else? Jeremy is still looking at this, and so he suggested that if we are wanting to move forward with approving it, that we just make the motion so that we give him some wiggle room to work out any last legalese changes with the city's council, so that we're not ping-ponging it back and forth between the two.
Is there any other activities to happen inside the shop other than vehicle storage?
Just storage mostly.
Okay.
There's an office in there. I think Marla would like to work out of there, but I think because we have 2 people that she'll be supervising, I'm going to discourage her. I would like her to be in the courthouse and supervising the new dispatcher when that person is hired, and Sabrina. So other than that, we had talked about maybe having Jeff Shaw go through it because there is a bathroom in there. We need to figure out what we need to do on the ADA side to make that work and make sure we're in compliance. And he has told me anytime you're doing work on a public building, there's something in law that says a certain percentage has to be spent on removing barriers for ADA compliance, and so we would need to do a walkthrough probably with somebody who knows what they're looking at on that piece.
And our attorney did say on the bathroom is that if you did not want to do ADA, the option is no bathroom, which if you've seen that bathroom, that might be the best option. Or you have to go by the ADA compliance. So either way.
So any questions on it or concerns about kind of that overview?
So we can go ahead with approving this lease with the condition that legal counsels agree.
Yeah.
And then if the bathroom is part of this repair, then that would be part of that.
Yeah, so what would happen is you'll see in the agreement, it references an addendum, which is the work that we would actually be doing. And that's the thing that I would like Jeff to walk through and actually detail out for us. These are all the things that need to happen to make it compliant. And then that will be attached to this as these are what we actually need, what we're agreeing to actually upgrade. And then that will be the basis when we go out for bids. Because of the number, it's probably going to be like an intermediate bid, or intermediate procurement process. So we'll go out and ask for 3 contractors to bid on it.
Any concerns, Leslie? No. I move to approve the lease agreement with the City of Condon for the Ward Street shop as presented and subject to revisions deemed necessary and appropriate by legal counsel.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the lease agreement with the City of Condon for the Ward Street shop as presented, but subject to revisions deemed necessary and appropriate by legal counsel. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Not to, when do you think that's gonna be back? Because it'll go out in our council packets. It would be nice to wrap up what his changes are back to Wyatt by next week. Is
I'm gonna
that-
have Teresa contact him because he seems to turn around her projects faster than mine. So I'm gonna assign her that when we go down after the meeting to check in
Okay.
with him about it.
Okay, because then we'll meet on September 4th, and hopefully we'll have it all worked out and approve it at that point.
And your packets go out, you said,
They'll go out next Wednesday.
next one, okay. It'll help if we give him a, just have to be back in.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
that'd be
Okay.
great, thanks.
We can do that. Next one, discuss fiber management partnership with the city of Condon. So to recap, this is sort of a joint partnership between the two entities to manage the middle mile fiber line. Catherine and I have gone back and forth about how to structure it, how much power to give it, whether it should just be advisory or whether they should have authority. And what we keep running into is if it's just advisory, it gets a little complicated as far as who they're signing the lease agreement with, what happens if, if it dissolves, it's not really clear, like where those customers would go, if it's advisory, all those kinds of things. And so what we settled on was really making it an entity that has some authority to sign leasing agreements and actually take action to get those things leased and managed. So we're still talking about a 5-member board. One change that we had from last time was it'd be 2 selected from each party, including at least one elected official. So that would give some flexibility. Say if the city wanted to put 2 of their city councilors on, it could be 2 public officials. Before it was like 1 public official and 1 community person.
Specific, yeah.
And the 5th person is appointed by the 4 collectively, basically. We talked about documents would be stored by Gilliam County, so we will also serve as the fiscal agent. So I sent the initial draft of the IGA over to Nathan and I'm having him review that. He says they can handle taking in the payments, invoicing, people who are leasing for both, but just ask that the IGA be very clear on what those rules are, how the money is split, so there's no gray area for him. So he and Kelly can it'll be very clean for them. In terms of revenue and expenses, the partnership would share all expenses 50-50. Revenues collected beyond the expenses. So basically we take in all the money, pay all the bills out, anything left over would be split 2/3, 1/3. And that is based on the original investment in the line. And then during our last meeting, Sherry, you had asked about what happens if it's dissolved, how do we figure all of that out? And so right now the current draft says that the parties would split the customers, the remaining fibers, and the expenses 50-50. And so the idea would be hopefully that will incentivize our successors to play nice with one another, because on the county side at least that would mean less revenue potentially coming in if they can't get along with the city. So that would be our hope. And for today, this hasn't been reviewed by our council yet. It's with Jeremy, but he hasn't gotten back to me with comments. So I'm thinking, and I think the city is on track to have it on their agenda probably in their September meeting, so it would probably bring this back. But for today, I just wanted to see if there's anything that you guys saw that you have concerns about, or you think needs to be flushed out further between the parties.
I had a couple questions.
Uh-huh.
But it might be on the draft that I saw before the last meeting.
Okay.
So some of these things might have changed.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. It said something in that first draft that I read, something about the city being the fiscal agent for the first year and then the county after that. Have we just gone completely to county fiscal agent?
I think we've cleaned that up. Nathan, the sticky point in that and the reason it kind of bounced back is because we weren't sure that we had appropriate line items to be able to take in the revenue and pay out the expenses. And so Nathan is looking at the budget to find where we would actually run the money through. And so I think I need to check with him before we come back in September that we would take it on from the beginning, if we can find the line items in the budget
And
to run them.
where does it say that in here? Is that spelled out in the agreement?
I think so, I don't remember.
I didn't see it, but we got late, so I might have just missed it because it's also concerned together. I guess my question is, if it's not, can we just make sure that it's in?
Yeah, it says Gilliam County under general powers, under the board, it says that Gilliam County shall establish a separate fund in its budget to record receipt and split of all revenues and share all expenses.
Right here.
It's on page 2. Number
There's an
4.
extra B in there, I see too.
I see that too. Okay. Thank you. And the other question I had was, it says that, and then it also says that the board shall, it said the board should follow the city Condon budget process, but I guess that will just, whenever we figure out who the fiscal agent is, it will just say it will follow that government entity's
Yeah,
budget
and
process.
then-
And it got changed.
The new one got
Did it change?
changed, yeah.
Is that?
It's
the
on
county now?
page 3
It's
under
on page
budget and funding.
3 under, yeah, number 3.
Under
It
A.
also, I think we added
I think I saw
those
that.
different stages, the approval, adopted, and budget changes, just so it was clear about what that process would be.
I think I saw that, thank you. This is kind of an old note, so I apologize. And then also, there was something I read in the first one about that neither the city council or the county court can supersede this board's decision. Is that still included in the new?
I don't know that it's actually
No,
in the
because it's
language.
gonna be, I don't think we made that in this one because it's an ORS 190, it's under that. It does have the power that.
So we don't need to spell it out, basically.
No.
Because that board will act with authority, and they'll be the only ones that have to.
And not just be advisory? Okay.
Yeah.
That was it for me.
Okay, so if there's not any significant changes or concerns, I'll just have Jeremy review it and we'll bring it back. And as long as Catherine's counselors are okay with it, I think sounds like we have a pretty good.
That's another one. I did send it out as soon as I got this revised. I did send it out to my counselors and said, look at it, see if you have any changes. And I also texted them so they knew. And I haven't heard back from any of them. But if Jeremy has some major changes, it would be nice to have Teresa next week too.
Are you making notes? You got those too.
But yeah, if we could, I mean, the goal is to get it wrapped up so we can put the board in place so we can set rates because it's done and we're paying for it right now. So the sooner we get customers, which they're there, the better.
Yeah.
Okay, any more on that?
No.
All right, let's move on to 6.5, consider amendment to Omega Morgan Shutler Station lease. So, Omega Morgan got in touch with Kelly and wants to modify the lease again and let go of the north 5.25 acres and the south 12.5 acres from the lease, which is allowed in the lease. And so they will be down to the middle 4.75 acres. And so in your packet is just a 2-page amendment number 2 that just makes those adjustments and adjusts the rate down and then just makes clear, you know, that they need to, after the effective date, not be using the property and turn it over to us in good condition and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
I move we approve amendment 2 to the Shutler Station lease with Omega Morgan.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve amendment 2 to the Shutler Station lease with Omega Morgan. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, moving on. 7.1, lease management quarterly reports. Come on up.
Got 2 out.
And, thanks.
volumes at Columbia Ridge are up 11% year over year. It's been very strong. July was a strong month, 15.7% increase over the year, and year to date we're up 11%. All indications are that's going to continue. In the Arlington Insights newsletter, just to throw things up, we're actually going to start bringing some more volume in out of the Portland metro area also. That'll start, we started a little bit, I think 3 or 4 trucks a day coming out of Forest Grove Transfer Station, which is a waste management transfer station in the metro area on the west side. And that's going to increase starting in September through December, and that it's going to look like somewhere in the neighborhood of 150,000 tons extra into Columbia Ridge landfill over the next X years, as far as we can tell. So that's a positive, but it will mean increased truck traffic through Arlington. Walsh is going to be doing the trucking for that material, so it's both Forest Grove and the Newburgh transfer station. So volumes are growing and look like they're going to keep growing. Host fees have, for second quarter are $1,096,000, and for year to date we're at 2.413 million. And then, so I guess things are very busy out of Columbia Ridge. I think there's a chance we'll get 3 million tons this year, which to my knowledge we've never done. So I think that's a plus most days. Chem waste is also up 40% for second quarter and 30% for the full year to date. I do notice there's a typo that should say 68,900 tons, not 98,000. I fat fingered it as I was typing it in. Post fees 38,000 for the quarter and 81,000 for the year. Year to date, those numbers are through July. So we haven't closed August yet. Safety on site, we did have a tractor trailer rollover about 10 days ago. Driver was moving quickly and made a hard turn and turned it on its side. He's okay, but he is out, hurt himself, hurt some ribs. So he is out, but we did have that accident. We're actually implementing a slow down on the traffic at the site in general. That was long overdue probably, and with all the new traffic that's going to be coming on, it's definitely warranted. So we're going to slow things down. We've posted some speed limit signs to reduce that. We're also looking at governing the engines, doing some other stuff to help slow things down. Metro, thank you to the court for all of your support with the Metro. I think it was a great success. All the feedback was very positive, and this is Jackie talking sort of through me, but no, I thought it went pretty well, other than the flat tire, which nobody could have anticipated. But all told, I think I thought it was a neat little meeting. I thought it was great to have the kids come out and talk, and it's actually really impressed with the kids talking.
They did a good job.
Yeah, they were. I mean, that's a big group of people, and they come out and talk, and no fear, it was very nice. So thank you for all of your support in helping host this, and I think it reflected well on everyone in Gilliam County. Hiring, Columbia Ridge and Chem Waste continue to seek positions, welders, lab techs, chemists, and that should say drivers, not divers. We don't have a lot.
I was like, are you doing something new out there?
No, we haven't started any diving techniques at this point, but that should say drivers. Construction projects, we actually just finished a gas well addition. We added 12 new wells into the landfill along the northeast side, and late September we're going to be adding another, I guess it's 23. It's a large number of wells covering the top deck, and basically trying to take advantage of the gas being captured and so forth. We are also building a thaw bay. So this will be in addition to the 2 bays we currently have. This is a more purpose-built thaw bay, so it'll be able to hold an entire truck and so forth. That is actually part of the new Metro contract, in that we're going to take over the dray, or we're moving the trailers from the Walsh yard to the landfill, and within that, we'll do the towing of the vehicles.
Where are you going to construct that building?
It's actually going across the street from across the main hall road from the break room, basically. It's after you get past the water towers, that we built a road, and so it'll be before the scales, and the trucks would have enough time to turn into the scales if they needed to. So we're also looking at putting some structure up to make it another detox station. Just the 3 is, with all the volume growth, it's not looking like enough at this point. So employee and community engagement, we're looking at scheduling another safety barbecue. We had one in May, and we actually have had a very good safety record this year compared year over year. And so we're going to do another safety barbecue, and I think Leah is working on a picnic function.
Probably more of a Christmas party type thing.
Oh, it's a little later then.
November, December-ish. Appreciation Day.
She's taken over that, so I'm glad for that. Thank you. The Condon commuter bus, we did start a commuter bus running out of Condon, so that runs every day, 5-6 days a week sometimes. I think that's been going very well, and certainly, hopefully, is positively impacting the community.
Does that serve both shifts?
It's only the day
Just
shift,
day
or
shift.
primarily the day shift. We don't have a lot of takers for the Condon on the evening shift. Goldendale, we were trying to get one started up there, but most of the folks are too young to lease a bus or to lease a car. They're 22, 23, 24. And the lease has to be managed by 25 and up.
How many total commuter buses do we have now?
We're at 3
Do you
currently.
have Boardman? Are you doing Boardman?
Yes.
Yes,
And the Dallas?
And
correct.
that was Goldendale.
Dallas Golden.
We may be growing the bus on the Boardman side just because more interest and some new hires. So they've been clamoring for a larger bus, and we have to keep it under 15, so it may end up being the second bus. And then Arlington Insights newsletter, hope you enjoy that. Talks a little bit about what we're doing differently with the Metro contract in there, just to focus some insight into that. And I guess that was actually a pretty popular section of the newsletter.
And did you skip the donations for the changes?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, those did go out, and we have requested, and we move kind of slowly, but the 4-H donation should be approved, and hopefully the check written here very shortly. And so the gondola tarping, I know that's been a topic we've talked about. We've actually implemented a spray-on shell liner at both of our Seattle facilities. So they're spraying in, it's called dirt glue is the product, and they'll spray it on top. It makes a hard little crust to prevent anything from coming out. We're trying to figure out how to set it up at Columbia Ridge so we can spray the containers on the outbound side as well. Theoretically, they're empty, but there is some residue at times, so we'll get those covered as well. And then we have contracted with Watco to go through a whole gondola refurbishment program, if you will, to stop any leaks and so forth. So that is going slower than we would like. I think they're in the 30 to 40 gondolas range so far, and we've been doing that for a couple of months.
Where are they doing that with?
They're doing that Shutler. And I understand they cleared it with the county, so that's my understanding.
Okay.
Watco.
I don't remember seeing that, but it's possible.
So that is the report. Do you have any questions? Or?
Questions at all?
I did this time.
Pleased with your supervisors? That was a good choice.
Well, thank you. I think so too. I think Ashley's going to be very positive.
Rusty's technically been doing that for years.
I beg your pardon?
Rusty's technically been doing that.
Yeah,
for years.
he's effectively, he couldn't get him to raise his hand before, but he came around for whatever reason. We didn't have to strong arm him.
That's good.
He was interested and came on board, and so he's now there and doing a great job,
Good.
as usual.
Terry, did you want to talk about the crossing stuff? Or- We'll wait on it. Okay, I think that's all we needed. Thank you so much for coming. Sorry about the back and forth and it's been a long meeting this morning.
It's been a long day.
Well, and I of course missed the agenda when it came out, because I was thinking it was coming from you, someone else. I didn't catch it. That's why we were here early.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Laura.
it.
Good to see you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Can you get a copy of that?
Okay, 7.2, discuss Liberty Theater
No,
loan.
I'll get you another one tonight. You know it.
Okay, is Mr. J, are we gonna call him?
We said we would call him, but
A little late. So I'll kind of summarize what's going on, and then we can decide if we want to have Mr. James join us on the phone. How about that? Okay, so way back when, one of the previous courts provided a business development loan to Mr. James, John James, for the Liberty Theater in Condon. Our treasurer is notifying us that that loan came due on July 10th, and no payment was received on it, and the account is now delinquent. So the current balance on the account is about $10,600. The last payment was received in May 2018. And so Nathan sent a letter to Mr. James notifying him that payment is overdue. He contacted the court office. I spoke to him and requested that we consider extending the terms of the loan. And then the other thing that I note in your briefing is that the theater is currently for sale. And my opinion is that the actual sale may be the best opportunity to collect. So I don't know, would you guys want Nathan to join us for this conversation? I didn't think
The
so.
only real question I had on it was, do we have a lien on it? Or will we have a lien on it?
Good question. I don't know. Would you like me, would you mind going and grabbing Nathan really quick?
Yeah, I talked with Nathan a little bit about it, but that wasn't something that we talked about, was a lien. We can own a theater, or we can wait for payment.
Yeah. And he did reach out to us earlier this week saying that there's a new buyer that has been sniffing around that he felt pretty good about, that there may be a higher likelihood of selling it in the next couple of weeks. So, hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I should have given you a heads up. We're
All
on
right.
to the Liberty Theater
We'll do our
loan.
best.
So I kind of gave them an overview,
Okay.
that it's delinquent,
Okay,
that,
yeah, just the contract terminated, so it's due.
I asked a question about a lien.
There is a lien,
We do have one.
yes, I filed the UCC.
So if they sell it, we'll get our money.
Supposedly,
Is that the way it works?
yeah, it's supposed to, it's encumbered, so.
Okay.
so we kind of talked about like
I
waiting.
mean, part of
for
it
to be
has, it's
sold.
been for sale, but you know, some of that stuff doesn't move real fast in this location, so. I think he's honestly trying to sell it, and it is on the market, and I've had people call, and the assessors had people call, so, you know, people are looking at it, it's just the right buyer hasn't showed up. I think that unless you really want to own a theater, my opinion is better course of action is just to give him a period of time until it sells. And I don't want that to be drawn out too long, because maybe the price is too high and he's willing to equivocate or whatever. So that's kind of where the discretion comes in, but 6 months or something. I mean, it's been for sale for almost a year.
So would we need to, when you say extend it, would we need to just draw up a new
Yeah, we'll have to probably
loan for
loan
that
agreement.
period of time?
Right,
And then,
basically it's just a new loan.
So what do you guys think about that approach?
Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do at this point, and, you know, and then in 6 months, if those people out, they can have to reassess where we're at.
And we're thinking at like a 6-month period, is that what you guys?
Well, I don't know, that was just some number I pulled in.
Really?
What would you recommend?
Well,
I wrote
mean,
down
I wanna put a
recommended
little-
6 months.
Yeah, I recommend 6 months is good. I mean, I don't have a problem putting pressure on them, and there's nothing to say we couldn't extend that if we decide to at that point in time. Because that
Depending
document,
on where it's at.
well, it'd be a lot more fresh than the, you know, the 10-year-old document we have, so
Right.
it'd be easier just to update that.
But same terms, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think same terms. I mean, interest rates really aren't that
Same
much
interest
different at
rates
this
and-
point.
Okay. So if we're in agreement, I will have Jeremy draft revise our new lease or new loan agreement and bring that back.
Okay.
And I can call Mr. James and kind of tell him where we're going.
I agree.
Okay? Then that's what we will do, and I will have it on a future, hopefully in September, but based on the other stuff that Teresa's got to get Jeremy to do between now and then, maybe the second meeting in September, realistically.
Well, I'm sure that nobody's in a big hurry, it is what it is.
Who knows, maybe I'll be told before we drive.
That would be great. That would happen, that'd be super.
All right, I think that's it. Anything else for Nathan on that?
No, thank you.
That's what we're doing.
Treasurer Hammer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. Okay, moving on, court member reports. Leslie. Look at you.
She's got her book.
Look at you.
She's got her book.
This is gonna be quick, because not much has been going on with me right now.
Well, there has, but not
Well,
town
yeah,
business.
I apologize for missing the last meeting. But since the last meeting, I was able to attend the Tri-County Court meeting. I tried to set up a meeting with the Metro Council president last time I happened to be in Portland, but she was traveling that day and it didn't quite work out. But I did try to, I was really
You just
wanting
wanted
to
to
just pop in and
visit her.
say hi.
So much
I did
fun.
get to, yes, I did get to talk to Tom. Thank you
Okay.
for the hats and all of that. I was scheduled to have a meeting with a couple of the, I've got the big wind turbine company reps on Tuesday, yesterday, but they had postponed it, so I think we're gonna get together maybe the first week of September. And they wanna talk to me, so I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to listen. I plan on going to Walden's Town Hall next Wednesday. I believe it's at 11:15. I also have a tour scheduled next week for the potential irrigation project area. I'm gonna go out there and take a look and see that. I made reservations for myself for the AOC conference, and I would just suggest if we have staff planning on attending, they should do so.
Did you see the email though
Yes.
that said
Yes, and
you
I-
needed to wait?
I emailed her back and forth. I said, Sherry and I aren't gonna get like revoked because we were early birds, right? And she says, no, I won't let them do that. But yeah, I told her, I said, oh, by the way, I said, we already made some reservations there, let people do it already. So she was kind of like.
Yeah, but I did you tell them you were in with the AOC
Yes.
conference? Oh, I did not.
Did you not, did you get to
I
walk
just did it
right?
online, but I figured I could go back and say, hey.
Yeah, you should, maybe
I'm
you should
with
check
that.
back with them. But it
Well,
sells
I'll
out
wait
very,
until she comes back.
very quickly. And like
Yes.
last time, I think it was in 2 or 3 days. All the rooms were gone. So if we have people that want to go, they better do it.
They don't talk about it.
Got it. Check, we'll do that this afternoon.
That's it for me.
Sherry.
Okay, I attended another NORCOR board meeting, and we're still working on the bylaws, and we will continue to do that and revamp. There was, well, that's the big takeaway from that, is we're still just trying to work through bylaws. And I did attend the Port of Arlington meeting last week, and they're doing some good work. The Watco building, they're go to the Planning Commission, City Planning Commission next Tuesday for a hearing on the building that they want to put up for Watco on Railroad Avenue next to the Rockless building. So that is coming up. They lowered their small business loans to $5,000 instead of 10, so that they could give out more. They didn't mention if there was applications. And then they will be, and I encourage them to resubmit their capital projects grant requests. And we talked about, what the committee, what the issues were and how to resolve that. So, I think that was it. Oh, and there is a port commission vacancy that they're advertising, so.
Do you know what area it has to be filled?
Well, it's open because to any area for the interim being filled in appointment, for the
They
appointment.
didn't find anybody to run.
And then when it does come up to run, then it would have to be from District
Okay.
3. But they were going to try to find someone from District 3 that was interested.
Continuity.
Yeah. And that was it. That's what I've done. Is that all with them?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's in 2 weeks.
And I do plan on attending the planning commission hearings next Tuesday in the city of Arlington.
Most of the stuff I was going to cover came up under correspondence, so just wanted to note the Saddle Club property that I'll put back on the agenda for us to discuss. Just as an FYI, we're doing an office swap in the building, so when the new dispatcher is hired, Marla and Sabrina are going to go into Rachel and Michelle's office. So we're going to swap because it's a little bit bigger. So Sabrina and the new dispatcher will be up front, and Marla will be where Michelle's sitting. And then Michelle and Rachel will just be in what is now the transportation office. So they will be doing that move, I think about September 10th, 11th. So there'll be some disruption in the building that day, just FYI, while they're moving, but I think we've got it all mapped out of what's moving when, and so we'll hopefully have this least amount of disruption possible while their computers are unplugged and their phones are unplugged and all that kind of stuff. So we will take the opportunity while Michelle and Rachel's current office is clean of furniture to repaint and put new carpeting in because it's pretty worn and yeah. So
It's upgraded.
yeah, so you'll see those come through the AP. They're less than the 10,000, so we didn't have to go through, or actually less than 5, so we didn't have to go through the procurement for that, the formal procurement. So anyway, I think that's it for reports, and then I have some announcements when we get to that.
I also, Nathan Hammer and I went to the Rain Lab yesterday, I forgot to tell you that, and to do some cleaning and throw away some of the stuff that's attracting rodents and bugs, and Daryl happened to be there too, so we drug him into the foray and we did some cleaning out, we did some inventorying of what is there, and Nathan had some deja vu moments. There is office furniture in that office that can be utilized for anybody that needs, it's nice furniture and should be somewhere where we're using
Come
it.
back to the courthouse.
There's some art and some other stuff in there that you might consider looking at to see if that's something we want to also move.
Okay.
And Nathan is going to put some feelers out about the equipment and what the value is and what the stuff that we can, that actually belongs to the county and not have part of the lease with the EDA. See if we can't surplus some of that, and then there's dishes and there's just all kinds of stuff. But we're going to plan another work day and go back and do some more cleaning and some more evaluation of what's there.
Sounds good. Anything else for court reports? So under announcements, Michelle has been working on getting scheduled that work session on the red zone stuff. So here's kind of where we landed, is on October 1st, which is a Tuesday, there's gonna be a tax incentive workshop held in Arlington, where taxing districts, the port, anybody that's interested, I think if some of us can make it, that would be great as well. And it's gonna be Business Oregon, will be in town to just talk about the different tools that are available to incentivize economic development. And I think that'll give us good background on red zones as well, and sort of how they work and all those specifics. And then Art Fish, I think is the guy's name, is the guy that would be coming out from Business Oregon, and so he then would probably just stay overnight. And on October 2nd, which is our first meeting in October, we would look at doing a work session with him and the assessor and whoever else, we'll have the wind companies here as well. So I wanted to make sure that October 2nd date worked, and get the October 1st on your calendar if you're available. That one will be in Arlington, and it runs pretty long. I think this is the sort of sample from John Day, and it's running from 9 to 2 with lunch. So I'm thinking, it's several hours. On the October 2nd work session, would we want to have court at 10 and have the work session at 8? Is that what we're thinking? Or do we want to have the work session when our normal court would be at 10 and do an after lunch?
That's up to you.
Any good idea on how long the work session would take?
Can we limit what the work session is?
The other thing too, or do it after court, because we kind of know how long court usually takes.
That's
Yeah.
true.
We could do, we could do an afternoon work session if you wanted to.
Court at 10 and work session at 1.
Except for the fact if we have a court session like today and we're done in an hour, that's
true.
our break.
That's true.
Here's what I would suggest.
Can we think about it?
We can. I would suggest we look at doing this one first. I think this one will probably take a solid, probably at least 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. Depending on if we go to the workshop the day before, it might take less time but if he has to kind of start from the beginning with us on how these work and how they're structured, then there's going to be a pretty good learning curve and probably asking a lot of questions about implications of those things. And the taxing districts may or may not want to weigh in on that too, because it obviously impacts them pretty significantly. So I would suggest we do the work, I would suggest we do the work session first, because court can sometimes be done very quickly. That's true. And so I guess the question is, do you want to do 8 and 10, or 10 and 1?
10:30. 90 minutes.
8 and 10:30?
Or do,
You want to start early? Is that what you're saying, Sherry?
Or 10:30 and 1?
Or 10:30? Can we get is it possible, do you think he has a real good idea of how long this work session might take?
I can ask him.
I just don't know how long he's going to be able to talk about this red zone. I don't know.
Okay. So here's what I'll do. Michelle and I will go back to him and just see who else is in that, going to be taking part in that. And then during the next meeting, I will come back and we can select a time, as long as you guys hold the date.
Got it.
I will be free that day.
Got it.
Sounds good? Okay, next meeting, September 4th, 2019. I think we'll be back to our 10 a.m. schedule. Okay, sound good? That one will still be here in Condon, I believe. It'll be the last one in September, is that right? That we're
In Arlington?
in Arlington?
Arlington? The 18th maybe?
Yeah, isn't it the last one of the quarter we usually do in Arlington?
So.
Okay.
Unless
Unless you request otherwise. So let's do Condon September 4th, and then the last one in September we'll do in Arlington.
Okay.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? If not, then I will adjourn at 2:57.